The lower transit decks always felt colder after last shift, but Jackson Reed didn't mind. He preferred quiet hours, when the crowds thinned and the city's noise settled into a low hum. Tonight, though, that quiet carried a strange tension, the kind that made his instincts tighten as he walked across Level 12 Plaza, a hot meal pack still warm in his hand. His body was tired, but his mind stayed sharp. He had spent the whole day fixing broken routing lines, recalculating cargo paths, and arguing with supervisors who loved extra reports. He wanted nothing more than to go home, eat, and sleep. But something kept pulling at him, a feeling he had missed something important. Then he saw her. A tiny figure stood under the pale curve of a support arch, right beside a maintenance pillar marked G4. She didn't move, not even when the flow of people shifted around her like water around a rock. Jackson slowed without meaning to. He recognized her. He had seen this small alien girl here before. Same place, same posture, same stubborn stillness. She looked about 8 years old. Soft violet skin glowing under the plaza lights. White hair falling past her shoulders in tangled ropes, tied with a faded ribbon. Thin clothes barely protecting her from the evening chill. No footwear. Her bare feet stood exactly on the thin seam between two floor panels, as if that single line was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Jackson stopped walking. She was thinner than the last time. Her cheeks more hollow. Her shoulders trembling from the cold breeze drifting down from the upper vents. And her eyes, large, pale, unblinking, stayed locked on gate 4 ahead of her, waiting for something, or someone. He approached her slowly, careful not to scare her. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't move away. She simply whispered, "I'm waiting." Her voice was dry, fragile, like someone who had spent too many nights breathing cold air. Jackson felt a sharp pull in his chest, a mix of worry and anger at himself for ignoring her the last 2 times he had seen her here. "How long have you been standing here?" he asked gently. She didn't answer right away. She kept her eyes fixed on the gate. "The lights changed many times," she finally said. Jackson frowned. "That meant hours. Maybe days. Maybe more. Who are you waiting for?" "My parents," she whispered, pointing at the gate with stiff fingers. "They walked through there. They told me to wait. I stayed. I'm still staying." Her words hit him harder than he expected. She wasn't just waiting. She was holding on to the last thing they told her. The last moment she believed she belonged somewhere. He crouched so his height wouldn't overwhelm her. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she said softly. Her gaze flicked to his meal pack, then quickly back to the gate, afraid she'd miss something if she blinked. "Lyra," he said gently, "are you hungry?" She swallowed, but didn't speak. She clutched her thin shawl closer, as if holding herself together was the only thing she knew how to do. Jackson made a quiet decision. He opened the warm meal pack and placed it on the ground beside her. Steam drifted upward, carrying the scent of hot bread and spiced meat. Her nostrils flared with instinct, but she didn't move. "You can eat," he said softly. "You don't have to leave the line." Her eyes glimmered with both hope and fear. "If I move, they might come back and not find me," she whispered. Jackson felt something in him tighten, a protective anger at a world that could forget a child like her. "You won't be alone," he said quietly. "Not anymore." For the first time, she lifted her head and looked at him. A cautious, trembling hope flickered in her eyes. And Jackson knew he couldn't walk away. Not tonight. Not ever again. Lyra didn't touch the food at first. She only stared at the gate, breathing in sharp, shallow breaths, as if any movement might break a promise. Jackson sat beside her but left a small space, making sure she didn't feel trapped. People walked past them without stopping. Workers, students, travelers. All of them flowed around the little girl as if she were just another shadow on the ground. But Jackson couldn't unsee her now. "You can watch the gate while you eat," he said gently. "Nothing will hide it. Nothing will block it." She shook her head at first. Then, after a long moment, her small hand reached forward, slow, scared, almost guilty, and she picked up the warm bread. The first bite was tiny. The second was bigger. By the third, hunger won. She ate quietly, carefully, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to enjoy something warm. Jackson watched her instead of the gate. Her tiny fingers trembled. Her lips cracked from dry air. The oversized jacket he had draped around her earlier almost swallowed her thin frame, but she held it close, grateful for the warmth. When she finished half the meal, She wiped her mouth with the sleeve of the jacket. Then she whispered, "If I walk away, they might think." I didn't wait long enough. Her voice broke on the last words. Jackson felt something heavy settle in his chest. He had met abandoned children before. He had seen broken families, lost travelers, missing persons. But none of them had stood in the same spot for years, holding on to a promise with such painful loyalty. "Lyra," he said softly, "how long have you been waiting?" She rubbed her arm nervously. When they left, my hair touched only my neck. She touched the long strands now reaching her elbows. Now it is long. So many moon cycles passed. Years. Jackson's jaw tightened. Someone should have noticed. Someone should have helped her long before now. "Do you sleep here?" he asked. She nodded once. I lean against the pillar. The floor is warm when the vents turn on. I don't close my eyes long. I listen for their voices. "And no one talked to you?" Jackson asked. "They look at me," she said softly. "But they also look away." The words hit him like a punch. People had seen her and chosen to pretend she wasn't there. Jackson breathed out slowly. "Lyra, you don't have to freeze out here anymore." She hugged the jacket around her. "But if I move, they will think I disobeyed." "You didn't disobey," he said. "You waited. Longer than anyone could. Longer than you should have." She blinked, confused by the idea. Jackson continued, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes waiting doesn't mean standing still. Sometimes it means finding answers. And I can help you find them." Her eyes widened slowly, like a small flame that had been waiting for air. "You can find them?" she asked in a trembling whisper. "I can try," he said, his voice steady. "I work with transport logs, gate records, passenger data. If they pass through that gate, I can track the path." She took a shaky breath. "But if I leave this line, will the gate forget me?" "The gate remembers every traveler," he said softly. "But you don't have to be alone beside it." She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face, trying to understand if he was just being kind or if he truly meant it. Then, slowly, she reached out her hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Jackson took her hand in his, warm and firm. Lyra swallowed hard. "I will walk if you lead." "I will," he promised. Together they stepped away from the seam line, the tiny boundary she had clung to for years. Her small bare feet moved hesitantly, almost shaking with each step. She kept looking back, making sure the gate was still behind her. "It's still there," Jackson said with a calm smile. She nodded slowly, breathing deeper. For the first time in years, she was not waiting alone. And Jackson Reed felt a fierce resolve burn inside him. He had found her by accident. But now he was responsible for her future, whether the city liked it or not. Lyra held Jackson's hand tightly as they crossed the plaza, her steps small and hesitant. Every few seconds, she looked over her shoulder, checking if Gate 4 was still there, glowing faintly under the overhead lights. Her breath shook each time she looked away from it. Jackson slowed his pace so she could keep up. He didn't squeeze her hand too hard, just enough to remind her she wasn't alone anymore. Still, he could feel the tension in her fingers, the fear that any distance from the gate was dangerous. "Where are we going?" she asked, voice trembling. "Somewhere warm," he said. "You're shivering." She didn't answer, but her fingers curled tighter around his. The city walkway narrowed as they approached the residential lifts. Warm air pulsed through the vents, carrying a clean metallic scent. Lyra leaned into the warmth instinctively, her bare feet stepping faster on the heated stone. "Nobody ever lets me stand near these vents," she whispered. Jackson frowned. "Why?" "They say I block the walk path. They tell me to move away from their shoes." His chest tightened again. The city machines were efficient. The people were not. The lift panel chimed. Jackson pressed his thumb on the scanner. Lyra flinched at the soft beep, as if expecting an alarm. When the doors slid open, she froze completely. I never went inside one," she whispered. "It's safe," Jackson said gently. "It only takes us up a few levels." She stared at the open doorway like it was a trap. The polished metal walls, the soft lights. Everything felt too strange, too different from the cold arch where she had lived her tiny life. "Will it close?" she asked. "Yes." And will it open again?" "Yes," Jackson said softly. "I'll be with you the entire time." She swallowed hard. Then she stepped inside only because he did. The doors closed, and the sudden hum of motion made her gasp and clutch Jackson's arm. He steadied her. "Just a lift," he said. "You'll get used to it." She didn't speak until the movement stopped. When the doors opened again, Lyra stared wide-eyed at the hallway. Soft orange lights. Clean walls. Quiet. Is this a home place? She asked. Yes, Jackson said. Mine. They walked to his apartment door. The lock clicked open with a soft tone, and warm light filled the small space. Lyra stepped inside slowly, like a creature crossing into a new world. She looked around with cautious curiosity. Small kitchen, simple couch, metal table, folded clothes stacked neatly in a corner. No pictures, no toys, no plants, nothing that said someone lived with him. You live here alone? She asked. I do. She nodded, as if that made sense. She moved to the couch and touched it lightly with her fingertips. It feels soft, she whispered. Jackson placed a warm drink on the table, Nutri-broth in a small cup. She stared at it with awe. For me? Yes. Drink slowly. She cupped it with both hands and sipped. Her eyes closed, and she exhaled with relief. Warmth seemed to move through her body like sunlight. When she finished, she set the cup down carefully, as if afraid to break it. Where do I sleep? She asked quietly. Here, Jackson said, unfolding a blanket on the couch. For tonight. She touched the blanket. Her hands shook again, this time from disbelief rather than fear. Is someone going to take me away if I sleep here? She whispered. No, he said. No one will take you anywhere. How do you know? Because I won't let them. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something more fragile. Trust. A feeling she hadn't allowed herself in a very long time. She lay down slowly, adjusting the blanket around her small body. Jackson dimmed the lights. Her breathing stayed shallow at first, then grew softer. You're staying here? She asked in a faint whisper. Right here, Jackson said, pulling a chair near the couch. I'm not leaving. She closed her eyes. Don't let the noises take me. They won't, he promised. Silence filled the room except for the distant hum of the city. Lyra's breathing steadied. Her small hand slid from under the blanket and rested against the edge of the couch, searching for something. Jackson placed his hand near hers, not touching, just close enough. Her fingers curled toward the warmth. Within minutes, she fell asleep. Jackson watched her for a long time. The girl who had been forgotten by an entire city, yet trusted him after only a few gentle words. He made a quiet vow. Tomorrow he would check every archive, every log, every gate record, because someone had abandoned her. And humans didn't walk away from injustice, not when a child was left standing alone for years. Morning light pushed softly through Jackson's narrow window, painting faint lines across the apartment floor. He hadn't slept, but he didn't feel tired. His mind stayed sharp all night, listening for every small movement, every shift of the blanket, every breath Lyra took. When she finally stirred, she sat up slowly, blinking at the quiet room. Her white hair was tangled, but her eyes looked clearer than last night. She clutched the blanket around her shoulders and whispered, You really stayed. I told you I would, Jackson said. She nodded, as if testing the truth inside his words. In the plaza, promises meant nothing. Here, they felt heavier. He reheated some meal strips and bread, letting the smell fill the room. Lyra watched the rising steam with wide eyes, but waited until he placed a plate in front of her. Eat, he said. We have work to do today. She picked up a piece carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. What work? Finding answers, he said. About your parents. The sentence made her freeze. Hope flickered across her face, small, nervous, too fragile to grab. She ate slowly, measuring his expressions between every few bites. Jackson, she said quietly, if they left because they wanted to, will you tell me the truth? He looked at her for a long moment. Yes, you deserve the truth, whatever it is. She breathed out, relieved and scared at the same time. After breakfast, Jackson helped her put on his jacket again. The sleeves dragged across the floor, but she didn't complain. She liked the warmth. Even the clean smell of metal soap comforted her. They stepped into the hallway. Lyra stayed close, but didn't cling. She studied the other residents, their hurried footsteps, their crisp uniforms. Most looked away quickly, surprised to see her. A few stared, confused. Jackson ignored all of them. Inside the lift, Lyra held onto his sleeve, her body tense as the platform moved. I still don't like this box, she muttered. You'll get used to it, he said. Maybe, she thought, but it shakes too much. He smiled a little. That's just the cables adjusting. Cables should be calmer, she grumbled quietly. When the lift opened onto the administrative terrace, she stepped out slowly. The air carried a sharper scent here, cleaner, colder, as if the walls themselves belonged to a different world. People moved fast, paperwork in hand, backpacks tied on shoulders, voices low and clipped. Lyra's shoulders tightened. "It is loud here," she whispered. "It's safe," Jackson said. "Just stay close." The transit archive building rose in front of them, wide and heavy, built from reinforced stone and glass panels. Lyra stared at it the same way she had stared at the lift, like it was a creature she didn't want to wake. "Does this place know everything?" she asked. "It knows enough," Jackson said. Inside, screens flashed with transit warnings and lists of departures. The air chilled instantly. Lyra moved closer to Jackson's side, her small hand gripping the jacket sleeve tightly. At the reception desk, a clerk lifted her eyes. "Coordinator Reed. Early today? Need access to passenger logs," he said. "Gate 4. About 7 years back." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "Deep records." "Just authorize," Jackson said. Her gaze shifted to Lyra. "Is she?" "She's under my temporary care," Jackson said firmly. The clerk hesitated, then keyed in a command. "Use Pod B." They walked down a narrow corridor. Pod B was small, just one chair, one curved terminal, soft lights. The hum of the machine filled the room. Lyra hovered near the doorway, eyes wide. "It looks like a thinking room." "It is," Jackson said. "Come here." She stepped inside reluctantly. He rolled up his sleeves and started typing commands. The terminal responded with rapid lines of blue text. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "The record of your parents' departure." She swallowed, hands twisting the jacket sleeves. He typed their names. Lyra watched the screen, holding her breath. Several long seconds passed. Then a file blinked onto the display. A family unit. Departure confirmed. Civic transfer. Outbound contract route. Follow-up scan, none. Return scan, none. Case status, closed. Jackson's jaw tightened. Lyra stared at the glowing text. "Closed?" she whispered. "Why closed?" "I am not closed." He crouched beside her. "It means the city stopped updating the file. It doesn't mean you're forgotten." "But they didn't come back." Her voice wavered for the first time. "The file doesn't show why," he said. "That's what we need to find out." She stepped closer. "Jackson, if they left by accident, will you bring them back?" His voice grew softer but stronger. "If they are anywhere in this system, I'll find them." She studied his face, searching, testing, measuring. Then she whispered, "I believe you." Behind them, the screen chimed softly, new data loading, new gaps appearing. Something wasn't right. And Jackson felt it tightening around them like a silent warning. The terminal kept loading lines of broken data, each fragment more confusing than the last. Jackson leaned closer, eyes narrowing as the screen flickered with missing codes, empty timestamps, and half-finished entries. It wasn't normal. The city never left files incomplete, not unless someone forced them shut. Lyra stood beside him, clutching his jacket sleeve with both hands. Her eyes followed every line on the screen, searching for something familiar, something hopeful, something she could hold on to. "Why is it doing that?" she whispered. "Someone rushed this file," Jackson said quietly. "Or someone didn't want it looked at again." Lyra's breath hitched. "Because of me?" "No," he said firmly. "Because the system failed you." He tapped deeper into the archive layers. The machine hummed, protesting the search. It wasn't built to pull incomplete data this far back. Jackson bypassed the warning screens with practiced precision. Lyra watched him with awe. "You know how to talk to machines," she said. "I know how to make them tell the truth," he said without looking away. More lines loaded. Destination, unknown sector 17C. Clearance, restricted. Escort. The name of the escort had been wiped out completely. Lyra stepped closer, voice tight. "Is that where they went?" "It's what the logs show," Jackson said. "But this sector, it's not used for family travel. It's mostly industrial." "Industrial," Lyra repeated softly, tasting the unfamiliar word. "Factories. Storage. Work zones. Not a place for children." Her small fingers trembled around the jacket. Jackson kept scrolling, scanning every shred of data. A new fragment flashed on the screen. Tiny, almost hidden. Note, dependent listed as unconfirmed. His stomach dropped. Lyra stared at the word without blinking. "Unconfirmed?" she whispered. "Am I unconfirmed?" Jackson shook his head instantly. "That's a lie. Or a mistake. Or both." But they wrote it. That doesn't make it true, Jackson said sharply. Lyra stepped back, her shoulders rising as if a cold shadow had fallen over her. She had never argued with a document before. She had never learned she was allowed to. Jackson turned to her. Listen to me. This file was handled wrong. Someone closed it before checking anything. They didn't mark you. They didn't protect you. That's not your fault. So, someone forgot me, she whispered. Someone failed you, Jackson corrected. And I'm fixing it. She looked at him, confused, scared, and yet holding on to every word he gave her. The machine chimed again. A final line appeared. Secondary record, pending deletion. Jackson froze. Pending deletion? Lyra whispered, voice cracking. It means the city was planning to erase the file, he said slowly. Erase the record of your family. Her knees wobbled. She grabbed the edge of the chair to steady herself. If they erase the records, will my parents disappear forever? No, his voice was calm, but his eyes burned. Not while I'm here. Not while I can still reach the old servers. He locked the file to stop the deletion. A red warning flashed across the screen. Unauthorized block. Lyra gasped. Did you break it? Not yet, Jackson muttered. But I might have annoyed it. She blinked. Machines get annoyed? Only when someone tells them to, he said. The warning disappeared. The file was frozen, temporarily safe. Jackson exhaled slowly. He could feel the weight of the decision he had just made. The city did not like interference. It especially didn't like someone reopening old cases. Doing this for Lyra wasn't just a favor, it was a risk. He stood up. We're leaving, he said. This building has watchers. Watchers? Lyra echoed, voice small. Not dangerous, he said. Just nosy. He took her hand again. She held onto him tighter than before. They stepped out of the pod into the hallway. The air felt colder now, buzzing with invisible tension. Lyra walked close to him, her bare feet whispering across the smooth stone. Jackson, she said quietly, did my parents do something wrong? He shook his head. Not from what I saw. Then who did wrong? The city, he said. The system. Whoever closed that file. They moved toward the exit, but Lyra looked up again, eyes wide and full of fragile hope. Will we find them? Jackson didn't answer right away. He looked down at her, small, scared, but brave enough to ask. Yes, he finally said. I'll find the truth, no matter where it leads. Lyra nodded slowly, and for the first time, she stepped ahead of him. Not as someone waiting, but as someone moving forward. The walk back from the archives felt different. The plaza noise was louder, sharper, as if the city itself sensed Jackson had touched something it wanted hidden. Lyra stayed close to him, gripping the edge of his jacket sleeve. Her steps were small, but steady. She didn't look back toward Gate 4 this time. Not once. Jackson noticed. It meant she understood one thing. Answers were no longer behind that gate. They were ahead, and she was following him to find them. The lift carried them down to the living levels. Lyra didn't flinch as much this time, though she still held her breath during the movement. You're getting used to it, Jackson said softly. It shakes less today, she replied. It shakes exactly the same. She frowned. Then maybe. I shake less. He smiled at that, even with all the weight hanging over them. When they reached his apartment, Lyra walked inside without hesitation. She placed the blanket neatly on the couch, sat down, and tucked her hands under her legs. She looked like she was bracing for something. Jackson, she whispered, if the city wanted to erase my family, does that mean someone wanted me gone too? He crouched in front of her. No. It means someone didn't care enough to check. Neglect is different from intent. She stared at her hands. Neglect. When people don't do their job, he explained, and someone suffers because of it. Oh, Lyra's eyes lowered. That is what happened to me. He didn't sugarcoat it. Yes. She didn't cry. Lyra was a child who had run out of tears long ago. Instead, she looked at him with a quiet determination he hadn't seen before. What do we do next? The question surprised him. Lyra, who once refused to move from a tile seam, now wanted a plan. We need to find the original travel route for your parents, he said. Sector 17C isn't normal. It's off-grid. Old maps barely show it. Is it far? Far enough that no one goes there unless they're ordered to. Her brow knit with worry. Did my parents get ordered? That's what we need to find out. As he spoke, he opened a small drawer near the table and pulled out an old device. A portable data reader, illegal in some sectors, outdated in others, but powerful enough to break into forgotten city maps. Lyra watched with full attention. You use that to find the truth? Yes. And the city won't like it. No. She nodded slowly. Then I like it. Jackson snorted softly. You're dangerous. I am small, she said simply. Dangerous small. He shook his head and connected the device to his home panel. The screen lit up. Lines of old transit codes scrolled across it. Unauthorized. Unlinked. Abandoned. Perfect. He loaded the map for Sector 17C. The screen flickered. An old industrial zone. Multiple storage units. A collapsed rail line. And something else, blurred, unmarked, as if the city had intentionally covered it with blank layers. What is that? Lyra whispered. Something the city doesn't want citizens to see, he said. Was that where my parents went? It's possible. She leaned forward, her breath fogging the screen slightly. Why would parents go to a broken place? He didn't answer. He didn't know yet. He zoomed deeper. A faint signature appeared, barely readable, faded. Transport Route 6B, temporary civilian transfer. Jackson stared. Transfer? That's not normal. Not for families. Lyra swallowed hard. Were they forced? He exhaled slowly. Maybe. Or maybe they were told they were going somewhere safe. And it was not safe? Not safe at all. Lyra hugged her knees. Jackson, if they went to a place like that, can anyone come back? Yes, he said without hesitation. People come back from hard places. People survive more than the city expects. She studied him. Like humans. He met her eyes. Like humans. Something warmed in her expression. Not hope. Not yet. But a tiny belief that humans could do what systems failed to do. Suddenly, the data reader beeped. A new message flashed. Motion alert. Recent activity detected near Sector 17C. Unauthorized. Jackson's pulse kicked. Someone had been there. Recently. Lyra leaned forward, eyes wide. Is that them? I don't know, he said. But someone is moving around that place. And whoever they are, they might know what happened. Lyra slid off the couch and walked to him, small but determined. Then we go there. He stared at her. She wasn't asking. She was choosing. You're not afraid? He asked. I was afraid for years, she said softly. Now I have you. Jackson stood, grabbing his jacket and the portable device. All right. We go. Lyra nodded once, fierce and small. Together, they stepped toward the door. Not as a lost child and a tired worker, but as a pair moving toward a truth the city tried to bury. The city grew quieter as Jackson and Lyra traveled toward the lower access tunnels. The clean lights of the upper terraces faded behind them, replaced by dim yellow bulbs that flickered along the walls. Pipes hissed overhead. The air smelled older, dust, rust, and something forgotten. Lyra stayed close, her steps small but fearless. She wasn't the same child who clung to Gate 4. Something inside her had shifted. Is Sector 17C down here? She asked. Not directly, Jackson said. These tunnels lead to the old rail line that connects to it. Old rail line, she repeated. It's abandoned. And abandoned things hide answers. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. They reached a locked service door. Jackson placed his data reader against the panel. Sparks flicked inside the lock, and the metal door groaned open, revealing a dark passageway. Lyra stared into the black corridor. It feels like the city forgot this place. It did, Jackson said. But that works for us. They walked inside. The tunnel was cold enough to sting their skin. Echoes followed each step. Lyra looked around with wide eyes, but didn't slow down. You're not scared? Jackson asked. I was scared for too long, she said softly. Fear got tired. He glanced at her with quiet respect. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. Old rail tracks curved into the dark. A sign hung crooked above them. Route 6B, restricted access. Lyra stared at the faded words. That was in the file. Yes, Jackson said. He scanned the ground with his flashlight. Dust, debris, cracked tiles. But then, tracks of movement. Footsteps. Equipment marks. Recent. Someone had been here. Maybe even yesterday. Lyra crouched beside a footprint. Is it my parents? Jackson studied the shape. Heavy boot. Adult. But not two adults. And definitely not 7 years old. No, he said. But someone was here, and not long ago. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Maybe they know things. Maybe. He followed the tracks deeper into the tunnel until they reached a collapsed section of wall. Beyond the broken stones lay another passageway, narrower but intact. The footsteps led straight through it. Jackson squeezed through the gap first, then reached back for Lyra. The new corridor sloped downward, leading to a small metal door. A faint hum vibrated behind it. Power. Lights. Activity. Someone had restored electricity to Sector 17C. Jackson motioned for Lyra to stay behind him. He pressed his hand to the door. Warm. Someone's inside, he whispered. Lyra's heartbeat quickened. Should we go back? No, Jackson said quietly. We go forward. He pushed the door open slowly. Inside was a small room filled with old consoles, blinking screens, and stacks of dusty crates. And standing in the center, back turned to them, was a tall figure in a dark coat, hunched over a terminal. A living person, not a machine, not a ghost of the past. The figure turned. A middle-aged man with sharp features and tired eyes stared at them. His gaze went straight to Lyra, her white hair, her violet skin, Jackson's jacket nearly swallowing her. His expression changed instantly. Shock, recognition, fear. You shouldn't be here, the man said sharply. Both of you. Leave now. Jackson stepped forward, voice steady. We're looking for answers. The file for a family transferred here years ago. Their case was closed illegally. Their daughter was left behind. The man's jaw tightened. There is no record, he said, too quickly. No families. No transfers. Lyra stepped forward. Their names were Rena and Taller. My parents. The man froze. A flicker of guilt crossed his face, just for a second, but it was enough. You know something? Jackson said. I know nothing, the man insisted, turning back to the terminal. Go home. No, Jackson said. We're not leaving until you tell the truth. Lyra gripped Jackson's arm. Please, please tell me if they lived. The man closed his eyes. His shoulders sagged. They didn't die, he said quietly. Lyra gasped. Her fingers tightened on Jackson's sleeve. But they were taken, the man continued. Moved off record. Forced into labor units outside the grid. Sector 17C was only a stop on the route. Where are they now? Jackson asked. The man shook his head. No one who goes to those units comes back. Lyra's voice cracked. Then I will go to them. You can't, the man said. It's dangerous. It's where my parents are, Lyra whispered, tears welling. Even if they are hurt. Even if they are tired. I am their daughter. I go. Jackson placed a hand on her shoulder. Firm, steady. She won't go alone. The man stared at them, fear turning into something else, respect. You're both insane, he whispered. But brave. He stepped aside, revealing an old transport map glowing on the terminal. Then listen, he said. If you really want to find them, there is only one route left. A hidden path the city erased. Jackson leaned closer. Lyra wiped her eyes. Lyra wiped her eyes. The man pointed at a distant, forbidden sector on the map, far beyond any registered zone. And then he said, this is where they were taken. Lyra's breath stopped. Jackson's heart tightened. The truth wasn't over. It was only beginning.